The chamber is open and full of whispers.
The castle at Christmas is a different creature entirely. Most of the students have gone home. The corridors are wide and quiet in a way they never are during term. Footsteps carrying further than they should, the portraits dozing in their frames. Garlands of holly run along the banisters. The enchanted snow drifting across the ceiling of the great hall moves in slow, directionless patterns, unconnected to any weather outside. Hermione Granger is not going home for Christmas. This is not a tragedy. She told her parents she wanted to stay. Too much to do, too much to read. The restricted section of the library more accessible in the holidays. Her parents believed her because it sounded exactly like her. The truth is more complicated. The truth is that she doesn't quite know how to go home yet. The wizarding world has rewired something in her she can't fully identify, and she is afraid that if she walks back through her parents' front door before she understands it, she'll find it no longer fits the way it used to. So she stays. She walks the corridors at hours that would earn her detention from any present teacher. She reads until 2 a.m, candle burning low, the only sound the soft crack of parchment turning. She is not, she tells herself, lonely. She is productive. These are different things. On December 14th, 11 days before Christmas, she takes a wrong turn on the 3rd floor. She is not careless by nature, but it is nearly midnight and she has been in the restricted section for 4 hours, and her mind is still half inside a chapter on layered charm theory when she pushes through a door she has not previously noticed, into a room she has not previously entered. The room is dark, except for the object at its center, a mirror, massive, taller than any mirror she has ever seen, gold-framed, an inscription carved along the top in letters that take her a moment to parse. She reverses it automatically in her head. I show not your face, but your heart's desire. She approaches because she is Hermione Granger and she approaches things. The reflection is wrong immediately. The room behind her is the same, the stone walls, the cold air. But she is not alone in it. On her left stands a woman, red hair, thick and loose to the shoulder, and eyes that are, Hermione notices it at a remove, the way you register things in half-sleep, the same shade of green as her own. The woman is smiling at something just outside the frame. She looks like someone who is used to knowing things, and who feels no particular need to announce it. On her right stands a man, dark hair in several directions at once, a jaw with a stubborn quality about it. He is laughing at something, head tilted back, and there is something so familiar about the shape of it that Hermione's chest does something she does not have a name for. Both of them are looking at her, not past her, not at the glass, at her as though she is the specific reason they are standing there. Hermione is in front of the mirror for a long time. She thinks, this must be metaphor. She is a logical person. She understands what the inscription means, and she understands that she has always wanted belonging in a way she does not often admit, and so the mirror has looked into the locked part of her and produced, apparently, a family. 2 strangers who look at her like she is theirs. She will not cry in front of a mirror that is specifically designed to find the thing you cannot say out loud. She turns around and walks out. In the corridor she stops. She takes out her notebook. She writes, 3rd floor, east corridor, mirror of Erised, shows heart's desire, mine, 2 adults, a dark-haired man and a red-haired woman. Both looking at me, felt significant. Note for further research. She closes the notebook. She walks back to the tower. She does not think about the green eyes. Christmas Eve, the Gryffindor common room. Harry goes quiet on December 22nd. In a specific way, Hermione has learned to read over 4 months of friendship. This particular silence sits in his chest. It is the silence of something still being processed. He tells them on Christmas evening. He and Ron are in the common room, wrapping paper everywhere, Ron eating through a second box of chocolate frogs. Harry is staring at the fire. I found something, he says. A mirror, on the 3rd floor. He describes it, the room, the inscription, what he saw when he stood in front of it. My family, he says, my mum, my dad, my grandparents, all of them just standing there, looking at me. Ron nods slowly. My dad mentioned it once. The mirror of Erised, he said people have gone mad sitting in front of it, forgotten to eat, forgotten to leave. Harry doesn't say he's gone back. He doesn't have to. Something in Hermione's face catches him. Hermione. She has gone still in a way that has nothing to do with thinking. Your mother, she says? Describe her. Harry blinks. Red hair, green eyes. People always say she was beautiful. A pause. Hermione stands up. "I need to use the bathroom," she says, and she leaves before either of them can answer. The girls' bathroom, Christmas Eve. The cold in here is different. Stone and copper and the particular stillness of a room no one uses at night. She stands at the sink. She looks at herself in the glass above it. Red hair, green eyes. She has her mother's coloring. Everyone has always said so. Helen Granger's eyes are exactly this shade. Hermione has never once thought about this. She has thought about a great many things in 11 years. More things with more precision than most people manage in 40. And she has never stopped to think about the color of her own eyes until now. She stands at the sink for longer than she intends to. Then she walks back to the common room. She sits down. She picks up her book. She says nothing. Christmas night, dormitory, 3:12 a.m. The dream is not a dream. She knows this the way you know certain things in sleep, not with your mind but with your body, the specific gravity of it, the weight of a real floor under real feet. She is in a house she has never seen. Stone floor, a wooden staircase, firelight from a room she can't quite reach. There is a sound on the staircase. Footsteps, small and careful the way a child moves when they are trying not to wake anyone. A woman's voice comes from just above her. "I love you, my girl. Remember that. That is all." Hermione wakes up with her heart going wrong in her chest. She lies there in the dark for a long time, the dream already beginning to blur at the edges the way they do. She tries to hold the voice. She can't quite catch the sound of it, only the words, and the specific certainty of being addressed. My girl. She has never not once in her life been spoken to in that tone. Like the speaker has been waiting to say it for a very long time. She does not sleep again. Christmas night, the third floor, 4:07 a.m. Harry does not notice her leave. The mirror room is exactly as she left it 11 days ago. The dust, the dark, the gold frame catching the light from the end of her wand. She stands in front of it, the same two figures. The red-haired woman and the dark-haired man arranged on either side of her reflection like something permanent, like something that has always been there and she has only now learned to look in the right direction. Hermione reaches into her bag. She takes out a piece of parchment. She writes everything. The height of the woman, the color of her hair, the specific quality of her smile, not performance, not politeness, but the smile of someone who is genuinely glad, the shape of the man's jaw, the tilt of his head when he laughs, the way both of them look at her reflection, the way no mirror image has any right to look at anything. She writes, "The woman has green eyes, the same shade as mine." She reads it back. She writes, "Described to me as Lily Potter, red hair, green eyes, beautiful." Below it, I don't know what this means yet. She folds the parchment twice. She puts it in her bag. The memory charm has cracked, not broken, just cracked. A fault line running through old stone. Hermione does not have the language for this yet. What she has is a piece of parchment, and a methodology, and the particular patience of someone who has always been able to wait for the evidence to catch up with the question. She turns off her wand and walks back to the tower in the dark. The parchment goes into her bag. It will stay there for 2 years. Taken out, reread, turned over in different light each time she has a fraction more information than before, growing heavier with a meaning she doesn't yet have the context to hold. She is not ready to know what she is carrying, but she has started keeping the record. That is enough, for now. The word reaches her in the third row of the stands, carried over the noise of a Quidditch crowd that has been roaring for 40 minutes. Draco Malfoy, from the Slytherin end. No one asked your opinion, you filthy little mudblood. The world does a specific thing when that word is used. A kind of contraction like everything pulling inward at once. Hermione has heard it twice before today. Once from a 5th year in September, once muttered at her back in the library. She is learning how it works, how the particular architecture of it is designed to make her feel that she has walked into a place she is not owed. Ron reaches for his wand immediately. She almost stops him. She sees it coming, but she is a half-second too slow. The curse misfires badly, curling back on itself, and what follows is deeply unpleasant and serves no purpose at all. Harry is furious. Hermione is not. This is not because the word does not land. It lands. But Draco Malfoy has spent 14 months treating her as an inconvenience, and she has watched him carefully, and she understands what he is actually doing. He is looking for a reaction. He is looking for the specific expression that tells him the word found the place it was aimed, the wounded look. The flinch that confirms his theory about her. She does not give him the flinch. She stands very still for a moment. She looks at him once. Then she turns back to the pitch. Draco Malfoy does not understand what her stillness costs. He is not perceptive enough to understand that it costs anything. He sees no reaction and concludes there was nothing to hit. He is wrong. The library. That night. She has been in the restricted section for 2 hours before her composure does anything at all. It is a small thing. She reaches for a heavy reference volume on the upper shelf, moving slightly too fast, and the spine of the book beside it, an old ledger broader than the others, bound in something that is not quite leather, catches the heel of her palm on the way down. A clean slice, short, sharp. She hisses and pulls her hand back. 3 drops of blood fall onto the open page below before she thinks to press her sleeve against it. She looks down. The blood does not pool the way it should. It spreads. Thin, directed threads moving outward across the page, following pathways she cannot immediately identify. The page is printed with names and dates and connecting lines, a genealogy reference from the look of it. Old. Pre-ministry from the binding style, the kind of text whose enchantments were laid down before standardized record-keeping existed, before anyone decided what information a book should and should not respond to. The blood ignores the column where her name should be. The threads move past the G section entirely. She watches them travel across the page with a direction that feels deliberate, following the printed index lines the way water finds the lowest point of a surface. Not random, not leaking. Searching, they stop at the P column. Potter. The ink around the entry brightens, not dramatically, just the way text brightens when a charm is actively reading it, a slight lift in the contrast. Below the heading, James Charles Potter. Below that, Lilly Euphemia Potter, née Evans. 2 sub-entries beneath Lily's name. The first is plain. Harry James Potter, born the 31st of July, 1980. The second is different. A seal covers it. Old wax or something that functions like old wax, pressed flat over the entry so that the text beneath is not visible, not redacted, not removed. Hidden under a layer of deliberate concealment, the kind that requires a caster and a witness and intent. The seal bears a mark she does not immediately recognize. The blood threads reach the sealed entry and stop. Then, slowly, the seal begins to separate from the page. Not breaking, not dissolving. More precise than either, the way a wax impression lifts from a surface when someone who knows the method applies careful, even pressure, one edge releasing before the next, the adhesion undone rather than destroyed. The blood has found a seam in the concealment working. It is pressing into it the way cold air finds gaps in old stone. It is not forcing anything. It is simply demonstrating that it has the right. Beneath the seal, in the same plain ink as everything else on the page, Hermione Lily Potter, born the 19th of September, 1979. Below the names where a family crest would sit for any entry of sufficient standing, something forms. Lines first, building outward from a central point, a shield-shaped outline. Inside it, a stag, legs extended, mid-stride, rendered in fine detail, every line certain. Opposite the stag, a doe. Between them, a wand crossed at an angle with an olive branch. The Potter family crest. She stares at it for a long time. The blood threads are dry now, their work complete. The entries sit on the page exactly as they would have always sat, had no one chosen to press a seal over them. Hermione Lily Potter. She reads it a second time. A third. She reads it the way she reads things she needs to be certain of, without the part of her mind that interprets. Only the part that registers. She is looking at it as data, not as meaning. The meaning is too large to approach directly yet. The grief of it is somewhere. She can feel that it exists. She is not feeling it now. What she is feeling is the cold, clean quality of evidence. She takes out her quill. She writes, on a separate scrap of parchment, not on the ledger page, pre-ministry genealogy reference, restricted section, blood-responsive enchantments, consistent with Gringotts' lineage methodology, blood did not register under Granger, registered under Potter. Lilly Euphemia Potter née Evans listed as. She stops. She looks at the entry again. Born the 19th of September, 1979. Her birthday, her exact birthday. She puts the quill down. She sits with her hands flat on the table for a moment. Then she makes a decision that Hermione Granger would not ordinarily make. She takes hold of the bottom corner of the page, and she tears it out of the ledger, cleanly. One motion. The sound of it is sharp in the empty section. She does not hesitate after the sound. Hesitating after would mean doubting the decision, and she has already decided. She folds the page twice. She places it in her bag. She puts the ledger back on the shelf, picks up her things and walks out through the library and into the corridor. 6 minutes back to Gryffindor Tower. She does not think about what the page means for 6 minutes. In the dormitory, curtains drawn, she takes both pieces of parchment out of her bag and places them side by side on her bed. She does not feel the grief yet. It is still on the other side of the evidence, waiting for her to be ready. She is not ready. What she is ready for is the next step. The question the data is forming, which she cannot answer here, not with what the library holds. Not alone. She will need Gringotts. She will need Harry. She folds both pieces of paper. She puts them back in her bag. She lies down in the dark and does not sleep for a long time. The next morning, the corridor outside the Great Hall, Draco Malfoy is holding court by the doors, Crabbe and Goyle positioned behind him like furniture. He is telling a story. Pansy Parkinson is laughing at regular intervals in the way she does when she is not really listening to the story, but to whether Draco is pleased with the response. Hermione hears his voice before she rounds the corner. Yesterday, that sound did something to her posture, a tightening across her shoulders, a preparation. This morning it does not. She walks past without slowing. Draco says something as she passes. She catches the word, the same one, same register, aimed at her back. Pansy laughs. Hermione does not stop. She is carrying in her bag a page from a pre-ministry genealogy ledger that records her as Hermione Lily Potter, firstborn daughter of James and Lily Potter, heir to one of the oldest magical families in Wizarding Britain. She checked the dates against the non-restricted family history catalog last night. The Potter line runs to the 13th century. The Malfoys arrived from France in the early 1400s, 4 centuries. She did not need that information. She looked for it anyway. Old habit. Draco Malfoy does not know what he is looking at when he looks at her. He never has. He has been directing a particular word at a girl he has decided is beneath him, and that girl has been standing in corridors across from him for 2 years, carrying blood that is older than his family's arrival in this country. She knows this now. She walks into the Great Hall. She sits down. She pours herself a glass of pumpkin juice and opens her Transfiguration notes. The stillness on her face this morning is not suppression. It is the stillness of someone who knows exactly what she is carrying. The Weasley family in Diagon Alley is a spectacle that requires considerable space. 6 of the 7 Weasley children have opinions about where to go first and express them simultaneously. Mrs. Weasley is managing at least 4 arguments and a shopping list at once. Mr. Weasley has stopped in front of a Muggle plug display at Gamble and Japes and cannot be moved. Harry walks alongside Ron. He has been at the Leaky Cauldron for 2 weeks, long enough to start feeling distantly, almost comfortable. Hermione arrived yesterday with her parents, who said goodbye at the alley's entrance with the particular composed expressions of people who have spent 2 years learning to absorb the extraordinary without broadcasting it. It is Hermione who falls back from the group. She does it the way she does everything important, without ceremony, without drawing attention, until she is walking beside Harry instead of behind him, and Ron is 20 feet ahead in a dispute with George about something involving a fanged frisbee. "I need to show you something," she says, "and then I need you to come with me to Gringotts." Harry looks at her. Her voice has the quality it gets when she has been thinking about something for a very long time and has arrived, finally, at the next step. Now, yes. A side street, off the main. She takes out 2 pieces of parchment. She hands them to him without preamble and waits. He reads. She watches his face. The first parchment. Her notes from the mirror, December of first year. Her own handwriting. The red-haired woman, the green eyes, the man with the stubborn jaw. The woman has green eyes, the same shade as mine, the careful notation of a girl who had not yet understood what she was recording. The second, the torn ledger page, Hermione Lily Potter, born the 19th of September 1979, the crest, the outline of where the seal sat before the blood moved it aside. Harry reads it twice. He says, "So we're actually family." Not a question, not quite a statement. Something in between, in the register of something that is already true and is only now being confirmed. "I think so," Hermione says, "but I need Gringotts to be certain. The ledger is old. The enchantments are consistent, but it's not a legal record. Gringotts has a lineage crystal, blood-responsive, magically verified. Whatever it produces is filed in binding. It's the instrument the ministry itself defers to on inheritance disputes." Harry folds both pieces of parchment. He hands them back. Then let's go. Gringotts. The lineage room. They tell Ron they have a banking matter. Ron accepts this without suspicion because Harry having vault business at Gringotts is unremarkable, and because Hermione's face gives nothing away. Inside, the cool of the marble hall and the particular industry of goblins at the long counter, coins, quills, ledger pages, the sound of transaction conducted without sentiment. They approach. Hermione asks in a voice precisely even, for the lineage service. The goblin examines her. Then Harry. He goes to fetch someone senior. The someone senior is Goldtooth. Older, with the unhurried bearing of someone who has conducted this procedure many times and treated each instance with equal weight, he leads them to a side room off the main hall. Smaller, colder, bare stone walls. On the table, a geode, roughly the size of a human skull. Its interior surface is covered in formations the color of iron, densely packed, catching the lamplight at odd angles. Beside it, a ceramic bowl, a small blade, the lineage crystal. Goldtooth says, 3 drops of blood on the surface. The crystal produces a blood scroll, a complete record of the donor's magical lineage, vault entitlements, and any pending triggers on the bloodline. The record is unalterable and filed with Gringotts upon production. A pause. Are you prepared? Hermione picks up the blade. She does not hesitate. 3 drops. She holds her palm over the crystal's surface. The drops fall. For 3 seconds, nothing. Blood on stone. Then the iron-colored surface deepens, the way metal looks when heat is applied from far below. Slow, certain, the blood is absorbed. A scroll produces itself from an aperture in the crystal's base. Goldtooth lifts it. He reads it for a long time. His expression gives nothing. This is a goblin who has read inheritance records for several decades. Whatever is on the scroll, his face is not where you would look for the reaction. He simply reads, with the thorough attention of someone for whom accuracy is a professional obligation and errors are a personal offense. Then he sets the scroll on the table. He asks once, "Are you aware of the sealed secondary entry on your lineage?" "No," Hermione says. He turns the scroll so she can read it. Her name at the top, as produced by the crystal's own record. Hermione Lilly Potter. Firstborn daughter of James Charles Potter and Lily Euphemia Potter, née Evans. Born September 19th, 1979. Below that, 2 entries flagged in the crystal's notation system. The first, blood-cloaking ward placed October 31st, 1981. Wardcaster, Lily Euphemia Potter. The second line in the same plain notation, directly below, ward witness and executor, Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore. The room is very quiet. Harry has read it over her shoulder. She can hear him breathe. She does not look at that line again. She has read it once. That is sufficient for now. There is a trust vault. Goldtooth says, number 714, sealed to a female Potter heir since November 1981. He looks at Hermione with an expression that is not quite anything she can name. The vault would have recognized you upon arrival at any point in the intervening 12 years. No one brought you. He says this without accusation. It is a fact. He is filing it as a fact. Take me now, Hermione says. Vault 714. The cart descends for a long time. The vaults at these depths are old in a way the upper chambers are not. The stone changes character below a certain level, less shaped, more fundamental, as though the goblins eventually stopped working with it and simply built around it. The air is different too, cooler and dry, with a weight to it, the specific pressure of something that has been held still for a very long time. The vault door is iron, no crest, no visible lock. Goldtooth steps aside without being asked. Hermione places her palm flat against the door. The iron warms immediately, a warmth that begins at the contact point and moves outward across the surface in lines, following some internal structure she cannot see. A sound, low and continuous, like a mechanism releasing one component at a time. Not one lock, many. The door understands who is touching it. It opens inward. Harry moves to follow. He stops at the threshold. Not a wall, not a spell she can see, a resistance that holds him precisely at the frame without force. The vault has let her through and closed something across the entrance that will not move for him. She looks back at him. "Wait there," she says. She steps inside. The vault is not large. This is a working room, built to hold specific things, not to accumulate. There is gold, stacked in quantities she registers without counting, There are objects on the stone shelves whose purpose she cannot immediately name, and on a low table at the room's center, 2 items. The first is a book, large, old, the binding the color of water left standing too long. It lies closed and she does not touch it yet. Something in the way it sits suggests it is not ready to be opened without time and preparation. She notes it. She will come back to it. The second is a stasis box, glass-sided, sealed with a faint blue-white light along every edge, the signature of long-term preservation. Inside, folded once, a letter, the paper aged but intact. She does not need to open the box to recognize the handwriting. She has had 11 years of Helen Granger's handwriting. Grocery lists, birthday cards, appointment reminders on the refrigerator. She knows exactly how her mother writes. This is not her mother's writing, but she knows it in the same way from somewhere below conscious recognition. She opens the box. The stasis releases with a sound like a quiet exhale. She picks up the letter. A blood charm seals the fold. She can see the faint mark at the crease. She touches it, and the seal opens without resistance. As if it was waiting, she reads, "Lily's letter. If you are reading this, the ward has cracked, and one of you found what I hid. I hoped it would be you, Hermione. I hoped you would be the one who looked. I will explain what I can. In September 1979, before you were born, I performed a working called the Soul Split Veil. It does not divide a soul. That was Riddle's method and his alone. What the veil does is divide the record of a soul's existence. It severed you from every magical registry, every blood detection instrument, every ancestral trace in the wizarding world. To anyone searching for Potter children, there was only ever one. I want you to understand that I chose this. Your father did not. He argued against it. He said we would find another way. I believed at the time that I was right and he was wrong. I am not certain even now that I was. Dumbledore said the magic required isolation, that 2 living heirs known to each other would complicate the ancient protection he was building for your brother, that the sacrifice would be stronger, more complete, if only one child carried the knowledge. I have never fully believed this. I agreed because the alternative was Riddle finding you both, and that I could not permit. I kept you apart because I was afraid. I want to be honest about that. There is a second thing you will need to understand. Your brother was conceived before you were born. I know how that reads. Time Turner work your father undertook with the order displaced the conception window by several months in experienced linear time, while Harry's development continued at full pace. The result is that you entered the world first, on the 19th of September 1979. Harry followed on the 31st of July 1980. By birth order, you are the senior heir of this house. That is not a small thing. It will matter. If you are reading this, you found each other anyway. That means you are already more than he calculated. Do not let anyone tell you what you owe them. You owe each other everything. The rest, you decide, I am sorry it took this long for you to know your name. Lily. Hermione stands in the vault for a moment after she finishes. Then she walks back to the doorway and holds the letter out to Harry. He takes it. He reads it with his back against the vault frame and the letter held at an angle to catch the light, and she watches his face go through the particular sequence of changes that belong specifically to Harry. Not loud, not dramatic, a series of small adjustments arriving one after the next. He finishes. He lowers the letter. Neither of them speaks for a while. Then Harry says, "She said she was afraid." Yes. She wasn't supposed to say that, in a letter. She wasn't supposed to say that. She was being honest, Hermione says quietly, about what she did and why she did it. A pause. She doubted him, Harry says. She wrote it down. She doubted him and she wrote it down and put it in here where she knew we'd find it. Hermione says nothing. Harry has understood something important, and she is letting it settle. He folds the letter, he holds it, then he holds it out. You should keep it, he says. It came out of your vault. The Potter Pact. Before they leave, Hermione says, "We tell no one." Harry looks at her steadily. Not Ron. Not the Order. Not Dumbledore. She is very still. His name is on the ward record as witness and executor. He has known exactly what he sealed away for 12 years and said nothing. If we tell him we know, we hand him the chance to manage how we use it. I won't do that. Neither will I, Harry says. He extends his hand, palm upward open, the way you offer a hand when you mean something older than courtesy. She places her palm against his. No incantation, no formal words. The oldest version of a promise which requires only that both people mean it. They do. Our plan, Hermione says. Our timeline, our plan, Harry agrees. The main hall, on the way out. At the main desk, Hermione stops. "I'd like to formally register a Potter heir claim," she says. "My name, the grimoire held in Vault 714, and the vault itself, full registration. Legal record, permanent filing." Goldtooth steps forward from behind the counter. He reads the registration entry once, with the same thoroughness he applies to everything. Then he takes a seal from inside his robes. Iron cast, dense, the impression it leaves looks carved rather than pressed. He stamps the ledger. "The record is permanent," he says. "I know," Hermione says. "That's why I'm making it." They walk out through the bronze doors and down the white marble steps into the late August afternoon. Diagonally around them. The noise, the color, the ordinary movement of a world that does not know what just happened in that building. The most powerful banking institution in the wizarding world has formally acknowledged that Hermione Jean Granger is Hermione Lily Potter, senior heir of the ancient and noble house of Potter. The world does not know it yet. That will change, but on their terms, and no one else's. She looks at him. He looks at her. "Ready?" he asks. "Yes," she says. "Let's go find Ron before he buys something that explodes." They walk back into the alley, side by side, exactly as they always have, exactly as they always were. The shrieking shack in summer smells of rot and old wood, and the particular stillness of a building that has not been inhabited for a very long time. The furniture is broken. The walls show gray lath through the peeling wallpaper. Whatever violence was enacted here decades ago left marks that nature has been absorbing slowly, without success. Ever since. Peter Pettigrew is bound in the corner. Ron's wand is trained on him. Ron's face carries the expression of someone who has discovered that a thing they trusted for years was never what it appeared to be. Harry is standing near the door. Lupin has lowered his wand. The worst of it, the confrontation, the revelation, the particular chaos of truth arriving all at once, has settled into the flat, heavy quiet that follows. And Sirius Black, who has been in Azkaban for 12 years, who looks like a ghost wearing the skin of someone who used to be vivid, turns toward Hermione. He has looked at Harry already. He grabbed Harry's arm when they came through the passage and looked at him the way you look at something you have waited a very long time to see. Fierce, searching with the specific grief of a man who recognizes James Potter's face and feels what that costs. He has done that, and he has settled from it. Now he looks at Hermione. She is standing to Harry's left. Brown hair, practical robes, the expression she maintains in uncertain situations, watchful, contained, processing. Nothing about her invites projection. Sirius looks at her anyway. He goes through something. It happens in his face in sequence. First confusion, which is the mind trying to fit a thing into a category and failing. Then something older, the look of a person who is recognizing, not concluding. He is looking at her eyes, then at her jaw, then back at her eyes. The color leaves what is left of his face. "You have your mother's eyes," he says. His voice is different from the voice he has been using in this room. The other voice was urgent, wild, the voice of someone who had been moving towards something for a very long time. This voice is quiet in a way that has nothing to do with calm, and that's your father's jaw. He says it like a man stating geography, like a man identifying a landmark he memorized so long ago it is simply part of what he knows. "I'd know that jaw in the dark." Hermione says, "You knew my parents." Not a question, the same register Harry used in Diagon Alley 10 months ago, already moving toward the next piece of information. Sirius's breath leaves him in one long, controlled exhale. "I was your godfather," he says. He says it to Harry first, which is reflex. Harry who he came here for, Harry who he has spent 12 years in a cell thinking about. Then he turns back to Hermione and says it again, and this time the words carry a different weight entirely. "Both of you. I was godfather to both of you. James and Lily named me in the original will. I was supposed to—" He stops. His legs stop holding him and he sits down on the floor of the shrieking shack. Not gradually, not with intention. Simply down on the filthy broken boards, and he puts his hands on his knees and looks at Hermione with the expression of a man who has just understood that 12 years of grief were built on a lie someone chose to tell him. Lupin moves toward him. "Sirius? She's alive, Moony." His voice is perfectly flat. "Hermione Granger. She's been at Hogwarts. She's been standing in the defense classroom 3 feet from me for an entire year, and I didn't." He stops again. Lupin looks at Hermione, at Harry, at Hermione again. Something moves across his face. He is both brilliantly perceptive and constitutionally committed to not reacting until he has understood what he is perceiving. He files it. He says nothing. Hermione crouches down to Sirius's level. Not to comfort, she does not know him well enough for that, and she is honest about what she doesn't know. But speaking down at someone whose world has just rearranged itself is a specific cruelty she won't commit. "Tell me what Dumbledore told you," she says. "About that night. About what happened to me." Sirius looks at her. "He said you didn't survive." His voice carries no expression. "He came to Godric's Hollow after Hagrid. He said there were 2 children in the house. He said one of them survived, and one didn't. He said it was merciful. He said it was fast." A pause. "He told me," Sirius says, "that you had Lily's eyes, and that he was sorry." The shack holds this. Hermione does not flinch. She absorbs hard information the way she always has, by letting it settle completely before deciding what it means. What it means is that Dumbledore stood in the rubble of Godric's Hollow and told Sirius Black, who had just had his 2 best friends murdered, that the baby girl was also gone. He said it to a man already broken. He said it knowing it was not true. She does not say this aloud. Harry, behind her, has arrived at the same place. She can hear it in the quality of his silence. "How long was he there?" she says, "before Hagrid came?" Sirius's eyes sharpened. This is the specific question, and he recognizes it as the specific question, and something in him that is still the man who was once the most capable student Gryffindor had seen in years reassembles itself behind his face. 15 minutes roughly, maybe a little more. I got there first. I found James. His voice doesn't change on that sentence. It doesn't need to. Dumbledore arrived not long after. He said Hagrid was already on his way, that he'd sent for him. I left because I was going after Peter. He looks at Pettigrew in the corner without particular expression. I left both of them with Dumbledore. I thought, he doesn't finish it. He doesn't need to. 15 minutes. A man with 30 years of expertise and the authority to determine what records exist and which children are placed where. 15 minutes is long enough to look at a baby girl with green eyes and make a calculation about what she represents and what would be simpler for the world to believe. Hermione files it. She will think about it later when she is not in a condemned building with a bound man in the corner and a godfather sitting on the floor. "I know what he did," she says, "and I know why. Harry and I have the record from Gringotts that proves who I am. We found out in August." She holds his gaze. "We've told no one else, we're not going to. Not yet." Sirius looks at her for a long moment. "You have a plan," he says. "Ours, not his." Something changes in Sirius's face. Not hope exactly, because hope is forward-facing and what moves across him is older than that. Closer to recognition, the look of a man who has just found something he thought was gone entirely. James would have said exactly that, he says, word for word, in that order, in that tone. He looks at Harry. Harry meets his eyes. Something passes between them, the specific understanding of 2 people connected to someone they never got enough of. Then Sirius looks back at Hermione. He tells them things, in the particular quiet of the shack. Small things, specific things, the kind that exist only in the memory of people who were present, that cannot be recovered from any record or reconstruction. He tells them the way James laughed, never polite, always total, always slightly too loud for the room. He tells them the color of Lily's favorite mug, which she brought from home and which James transfigured into a frog by accident and spent 4 hours apologizing for. He tells them what Godric's Hollow smelled like in October, wood smoke and something Lily grew in the kitchen window that he could never remember the name of. He tells them carefully and without looking at either of them while he says it, that James talked about his children constantly in the last year of his life, that there was rarely a conversation that didn't find its way back to them. Then he says, "He had names for you." He looks at Harry. Prongsling. The word lands in the room and stays there. From the moment you were born, before you could hold your head up, James started calling you Prongsling the day you came home from the hospital, and he never stopped. Lily said it was undignified. He said you were a baby, and dignity was for later. Harry's face does something that is not a smile and not crying and is entirely both. Sirius looks at Hermione. "Prongslet," he says, "because he said you were braver than him. He said it constantly. He'd hold you and say, 'This one's braver than I am, Lily, I can already tell.' She laughed at him every time. She said it was because you cried the least out of the 2 of you." A pause. He said that proved his point. Something happens in the room. Hermione laughs. It is a short sound, not quite controlled, arriving without her permission. It surprises everyone. Lupin, Harry, Pettigrew still bound and ignored in his corner, and most of all Hermione herself, who is not prepared for it and who cannot immediately recall the last time a laugh arrived before she decided to let it. It comes out sounding a great deal like crying. She covers her mouth briefly. She does not apologize for it. Sirius watches her with the expression of a man who has just heard something he has been waiting for without knowing he was waiting for it. The laugh of James Potter's daughter, arriving in a condemned building 13 years later than it should have. He would have loved you, Sirius says, and his voice has lost the flatness. Something is coming back into it that she doesn't have a name for yet. Both of you, obviously, but the way you are specifically. He would have been completely insufferable about it. No one speaks for a moment. Then Harry says quietly, "He should have had the chance." "Yes," Sirius says, "he should have." The shack holds them in its silence. Outside, June is indifferent. The wrong kind of evening for this conversation, too ordinary, too still. Through the boarded windows, the last light of the day is going. Hermione wipes her eyes once, efficiently. She straightens. "When this is resolved," she says, and her voice is back to its working register, the one she uses when she has identified the next step and is already moving toward it. "When Pettigrew is dealt with and your name is cleared, I want to talk properly, about everything. What you know, what we know, what happens next." Sirius looks at her. The gaunt face, the hollow cheeks, but behind them something returning that does not have a simple word. "You sound exactly like her," he says quietly. When she'd made a decision, Hermione says, "I'll take that." She stands up. There is work left to do tonight. Pettigrew and the ministry and the specific procedural chaos of the next several hours, which she has already begun to think through. She will feel the full weight of this later in the quiet when there is space to let it be what it is. For now, a name she was always supposed to have. A godfather sitting on the floor of the shrieking shack, looking at her like she is a door that has opened onto something he had given up expecting to find. And the knowledge, specific, permanent, belonging entirely to her, that James Potter once held his daughter and told Lilly, with complete confidence, "This one is braver than I am. She intends to prove him right." The grimoire takes time to open. This is not metaphor. The book's bloodlock releases in stages. A page here, a section there, each one requiring not just contact but comprehension of what came before. Hermione has spent the better part of the summer with it, reading what it allows her to read, and what it allows her to read has been enough. Page 43, which released in June. A notation in faded ink beside a section on ancestral magic. Patronus, when cast by a carrier of ancestral line magic, can hold more than words. It carries intent, context, the full weight of the sender's meaning. A message in the Patronus language cannot be intercepted and cannot be falsified. It is the magical equivalent of testimony under oath. She has been corresponding with Sirius all summer. His Patronus is a dog, still, even now, even after 12 years, and it arrives through the window of her bedroom at irregular intervals, always when her parents are elsewhere, carrying something larger than any verbal message could contain. Not just words, but the full architecture of what he means. The legal texts he has been reading, the contacts he has reactivated now that his name is clear, the specific procedural path they have mapped together over the last 2 months. Her reply goes back the same way. Her Patronus is still forming. She has been practicing since June, since the page opened, and what emerges is not yet the fully defined shape it will eventually become, but it carries what she sends. Sirius has confirmed this. He receives it complete. The plan is complete too, by the last week of August. Gringotts, 3 days before term. Goldtooth does not react to seeing her again. This is a professional habit. Goldtooth does not react to anything that happens at his desk, because reacting is imprecise and imprecision is a thing he has no use for. He simply reads the document she places before him, confirms that every entry is accurate, and produces the filing seal. The document is the formal noble house claim for the ancient and most noble house of Potter. Senior heir, Hermione Lily Potter, born the 19th of September, 1979. Junior heir, Harry James Potter, born the 31st of July, 1980. Goldtooth stamps it. The seal goes into the Wisingamot registry the same afternoon, as Gringotts files all noble house claims directly, without ministry intermediation, because noble house law predates the ministry's founding and operates under its own architecture. By the time the Hogwarts Express pulls into Hogsmeade Station 3 days later, the claim is a matter of public record. They don't need Dumbledore's permission. They never did. Hogwarts. The Great Hall. October. The Goblet of Fire sits at the front of the hall like something carved from an older world. Blue-white fire in a stone cup, drawing papers into itself over 3 days from students who want to compete. The atmosphere is the particular excitement of a school that has been given something to anticipate. Hermione submits nothing. Harry submits nothing. They have discussed this once, briefly, in the Hogwarts library on the second night of term. The conversation lasted 4 minutes. On the night of the selection, the Great Hall is full. The champions are announced: Cedric Diggory for Hogwarts, Fleur Delacour for Beaux Batons, Victor Crumb for Durmstrang. The hall settles into satisfaction. 3 champions. The goblet goes dark. Then it flares again. The 4th name comes out in Dumbledore's hand and is read aloud before anyone can prevent it. Harry Potter. The hall does what halls do when something impossible has happened. The noise is enormous. Harry does not stand. He is sitting completely still, 3 seats from Hermione, and she watches his face process the situation in the same way she is processing it. Not with the shock of the unexpected, because neither of them expected this specific development, but both of them understood that the tournament would produce some version of a trap, and here it is. She is already standing by the time the teachers begin directing Harry to come forward. Air privilege, she says. Her voice is not raised. She does not need to raise it because she has spent 4 years learning exactly how much projection is required to be heard in a large room without the appearance of effort. Every head within 20 feet turns. She looks at Dumbledore. Under Noble House Law, Section 4 of the Wizengamot Heritage Charter, any champion competing in a sanctioned magical contest may declare representation under their house rather than their school. Harry Potter competes as junior heir of the ancient and noble house of Potter. Any challenge to his participation must be directed to the senior heir of that house, which is me, and processed through Wizengamot proceedings on noble house affairs. A pause. Those proceedings, she continues, take a minimum of 60 days. The first task is in 6 weeks. Silence. Dumbledore looks at her. She looks back. His expression carries the particular quality of someone who is recalculating a great deal of information very quickly, and who is doing so without changing his face. Cornelius Fudge, who has come from the ministry to observe the selection, goes the specific shade of red that indicates fury that cannot currently find a legal exit. This is completely improper, Fudge says. A student cannot simply invoke, "She's not a student in this context," Sirius says. He is seated in the guests' gallery at the back of the hall, free, cleared, present by formal invitation as godfather to the junior heir of the House of Potter. He is wearing robes that actually fit him, which is still slightly new, and he is watching Fudge with an expression of calm interest. She's the senior heir of an ancient and noble house exercising a charter right that has been on the books since long before the ministry existed. The filing is registered with Gringotts. Goldtooth will confirm. He tilts his head. Would you like his personal extension? Fudge cannot touch this without triggering a noble house precedent dispute in the Wizengamot, which would take months to resolve and would require every member to vote on whether a minister had the authority to override a heritage charter that predates his entire department's existence. He knows this. Hermione knew he would know this when she filed the document. He backs down. Harry walks to the front of the hall and is registered as a Triwizard champion, competing under House of Potter representation. Dumbledore watches Hermione the entire time. He says nothing. She sits back down. Hermione's dormitory. 2 weeks later, Rita Skeeter arrives. She does not arrive voluntarily. She is legally compelled. The Gringotts legal office filed the press communication in September, the same week as the House claim, and the communication is clear. All reporting on members of the ancient and noble House of Potter must be submitted for review by the senior heir within 48 hours of publication. Noble House press privilege has been on the books for centuries. The Daily Prophet's legal department confirmed to Skeeter in writing that there is no route around it. She sits across from Hermione in a side room near the library, Quick quotes Quill hovering beside her, and she regards Hermione with the expression of a woman who has been outmaneuvered and is deciding how she feels about it. Senior heir of the House of Potter, Skeeter says. A Muggle-born girl. A Potter, Hermione says. The distinction you're drawing doesn't legally exist in noble house proceedings, which is the relevant context. Skeeter looks at her for a long moment. The Quick quotes Quill makes a small interested movement. How long have you known? Skeeter asks. Long enough to file correctly. And the Gringotts record is watertight? Goldtooth stamped it personally. You're welcome to verify. Skeeter is quiet. She is many things: invasive, manipulative, operationally dishonest in ways that have caused real harm, but she is also a journalist, which means that below everything else, she responds to a better story. What she came here planning to write was the orphan champion angle. What she is looking at now is something else entirely. The return of a thought-extinct noble house, 2 heirs, one of them a girl the wizarding world has been calling mudblood for 4 years, the legal maneuvering that put them both on public record before anyone could prevent it. That is a better story. The quick quotes quill settles against the parchment with a different energy. Tell me, Skeeter says, how a Potter ends up raised by Muggles. That's a question for another time, Hermione says. What I'll tell you today is this. The House of Potter is formally restored, the heir claim is registered and permanent, and Harry competes in the Triwizard Tournament as house representation, not as an underage student entered without consent. Those are the facts. You can print them accurately or you can not print them. Either way, the record exists. Skeeter taps one fingernail against the table once, twice. Then she makes a decision. 2 heirs, she says. Reclaiming legacy. She looks at the quill. That's the headline. That's accurate, Hermione says. The Great Hall. Breakfast. The following Friday, the Daily Prophet arrives with the post. Ancient House of Potter resurfaces 2 heirs reclaim legacy. Rita Skeeter byline. Front page, a photograph of the Wesengamot Registry stamp beside the Gringotts seal, both legible. 2 paragraphs on the legal history of noble house claims, a precise summary of heir privilege, as invoked at the Triwizard selection. At the Gryffindor table, Ron reads it with his mouth slightly open. He looks at Harry. Harry meets his eyes without explanation, because the explanation is one they are not yet giving. At the Slytherin table, Draco Malfoy reads the article. He reads it the way he reads things he is hoping will say something different from what they say, and it does not say something different. It says the same thing on the second read that it said on the first. He pushes his pumpkin juice an inch across the table. He says nothing. Pansy Parkinson reads over his shoulder. The expression that crosses her face is not one she will discuss with anyone afterward, because there is no version of discussing it that comes out well for her. The girl Draco has called mudblood for 4 years is printed on the front page of the Daily Prophet as senior heir of the ancient and noble House of Potter, a house that predates the Malfoy family's arrival in Britain by 2 centuries. Draco stares at the page. He has nothing to say. He has never actually had anything to say. He simply did not know that until now. Hermione reads her own copy at the Gryffindor table. She reads it once, confirms it is accurate, and sets it beside her toast. Then she picks up her Transfiguration notes. There is a defense lesson in an hour and she has not finished last night's reading. The House of Potter is public record. The world knows now. The next move is already planned. Page 67 of the grimoire, released in September. Hermione found it on a Tuesday evening. The page simply present when she opened the book, as though it had decided she was ready for it. She read it 3 times before she moved. The section was written by a Potter of the 16th century whose name appeared only as an initial, EP, in small, assured handwriting that pressed hard enough into the parchment to leave marks on the reverse. The working was called Sanguis Resonantia, blood resonance. It occupied 4 pages of dense notation and 3 diagrams, and it described something the writer called, without flourish, the most practical application of a blood bond in a combat context. The principle was not spell combining. The writer was specific about this distinction, underlining it once, not the merging of 2 castings, which produces instability and heat, but the alignment of 2 magical structures behind a single intention. One caster provides power, the other provides ground. A bridge requires 2 footings. Magic is no different. The requirement, a genuine blood connection, not a magical bond enacted by ritual, not a sworn oath, actual shared blood, the kind that exists before any ceremony. The application, one caster, in proximity or at distance, extends their own structural certainty through the bond while the other acts. The receiver doesn't receive information. They receive foundation. Their instinct operates with more architecture beneath it than they built alone. Hermione went to find Harry immediately after reading it. They practiced for a month in an unused classroom on the 4th floor, not spellcasting, sitting, opposite each other, learning to feel the bond as a thing with physical dimension, the way you learn to feel the weight of a wand before you understand what it can do. Harry described it, after the 2nd week, as a settling, something in his chest that came right when she concentrated. She described what she felt when he moved, not his intention, not his thought, but the direction he was about to go in, arriving in her a half-second before he went there. They told no one. The champion's tent, morning of the first task, the tent smells of damp canvas, and the particular anticipatory stillness of a space being used as a waiting room for something dangerous. Cedric is composed in the deliberate way of someone managing composure. Fleur is still. Crumb stands with his arms crossed, and his eyes somewhere past the tent wall, looking at something internal. Harry sits on a bench. He looks like Harry, which is to say he looks slightly too calm for a 14-year-old who is about to face a dragon. The calm of someone who has spent a month practicing something he cannot describe to anyone. Hermione is not in the tent. She is already in the competitor stand, which sits to the left of the arena at an angle that positions it partly behind the main crowd's sightline. She has chosen her seat specifically. She has been in it for 20 minutes. She is watching the arena and doing mathematics. The arena, the Hungarian horntail, is not what the word dragon prepares you for. The word dragon is a category. The horntail is a specific thing. 4 tons of scaled muscle, with a tail that moves faster than the eye tracks it, and a body temperature that raises the ambient heat of the arena by several degrees. The spikes along its neck are each the length of a forearm. It is chained at 4 points, and it knows it is chained, and it is not calm about it. The crowd fills the stands. Flags, noise, the kind of collective excitement that accumulates in a space where people have gathered to watch something they know is dangerous, but are confident will happen to someone else. Dumbledore is in the judge's stand. Bagman is beside him, already leaning forward. Crouch sits with his hands flat on the table. The first 3 champions go. Cedric first, a competent performance, a minor burn on one arm, the egg retrieved. Fleur next, elegant until the dragon sneezes and her robes catch. She recovers. Crumb last before Harry, practical and brutal and effective. Points docked for injuring the dragon's eye. Then Harry's name. The flight. He walks into the arena. The horntail turns its head toward him, and the crowd does something collective and sharp with its breath. Harry raises his wand. Accio Firebolt. The wait. 20 seconds of him standing in the open with a dragon tracking him, the crowd very quiet. Then the broom arrives, through the competitor stand, actually passing close enough to Hermione that she could have touched it, and Harry mounts it. He rises, and Hermione casts. Nobody around her sees it happen. There is no flash, no sound, no visible sign. Her wand is at her side, and she makes one small, controlled movement, less than an inch, and the blood anchor extends from her through the bond. Wordless. It costs her something, a pressure behind her sternum that she will feel for the rest of the day. But it goes cleanly. She can feel it connect. She turns her attention back to the horntail. She is watching the dragon's tail. The muscle group that controls lateral movement has a tell, a tension that appears in the joint approximately 3/4 of a second before the strike direction commits. She identified it watching Crumb's attempt. She has been watching it for 2 minutes now, counting the intervals, mapping the pattern. She calculates the next arc. She sends it, not a thought, not a direction. Her own certainty about where the tail is going, compressed through the bond like water through a pipe, arriving in Harry not as instruction but as something his body already knows when the moment comes. In the arena, Harry banks left. The tail passes through the space he was just in, close enough to have taken him off the broom. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't look relieved. He adjusts his altitude with the particular economy of movement of someone who is exactly where they intended to be. The crowd erupts. He is not flying the way Harry Potter flies. He is flying the way Harry Potter flies with 30 years more experience than he has. The recklessness is gone. Not because he is being careful, but because careful is the wrong word for what this is. He moves around the horntail the way water moves around stone, not through effort, but through a continuous, accurate reading of the surface. The horntail swings its body. Harry is already past it. The horntail lashes its tail in the opposite direction. Harry is above it. He is reading the dragon the way a seeker reads weather, not thinking, not calculating at a conscious level, responding to information that arrives slightly ahead of the event, because someone with his blood and access to his instinct has already done the calculation for him. He dives for the egg. The horntail's neck follows him down, the chain snapping taut at the limit of its reach, the heat from its breath reaching him as he pulls the broom level 6 feet from the ground, with the golden egg in his hands. The chain holds. He rises. The crowd noise is not the noise it made for the other champions. It is louder, and it has a different quality. the specific sound of a crowd that watched something they don't have a framework for and are responding to the feeling of it before the analysis arrives. The scores: Madame Maxime, 10, Dumbledore 10, the Hogwarts judge, 10, Bagman 9. His expression when he holds up the score has something in it that is not dissatisfaction with Harry's performance. It is the expression of a man who spent 20 years watching competitive magic and has just watched something he cannot place in any category he knows. Crouch, 9. He does not look at Bagman, but when he sets down his scorecard, he is very still for a moment. They exchange a look. It lasts 1 second. Whatever they are both thinking, neither of them says it. Harry lands. The crowd is not finished. The competitors stand. After, the other champions have gone back to the tent. The stands are beginning to empty in the disorganized way of a large crowd that has been excited and is still processing it. Hermione is still in her seat, the pressure behind her sternum fading now that the bond has been released. She is tired in a specific and satisfying way. Victor Crumb comes and sits in the empty seat beside her. He does not say anything immediately. He is looking at the arena. After a moment he says, in careful and deliberate English, "You were flying with him." "I was watching," Hermione says. "No." He turns to look at her. His expression is not accusatory. It is the expression of someone who has seen a thing and wants it confirmed. "I know what flying looks like. I know what watching looks like. You were flying." Hermione looks at him. He stands up. He has asked his question and received his answer. Not a spoken answer, but the answer that exists in the precise way she did not deny it. He leaves without looking back. Hermione watches him go. Victor Crumb is one of the greatest seekers alive. He has spent his whole life learning to read movement, how a body behaves under pressure, what genuine instinct looks like versus a performed version of it, what it means when someone moves with more precision than they should have. He watched Harry fly today, and he identified with no context and no explanation available to him that something happened in the arena that involved two people, and one of them was in the stands. He is the only person in the stadium who saw it. She picks up her bag. She has a potions essay due on Thursday in a section of the grimoire that released this morning that she has not yet read. The first full deployment of what they built together. It worked. Harry finds the book on the first day of term. An old copy of Advanced Potion Making, battered and annotated in 2 different inks, the original text printed cleanly, the margins dense with the handwriting of someone who found the original text insufficient. He uses it in their first potions lesson with Slughorn, who has replaced Snape, and produces a perfect draft of Living Death inside 30 minutes. Hermione watches this happen. She does not feel what she would have felt 2 years ago, the specific, unproductive frustration of being outperformed by someone using a method she can't immediately account for. She has grown past that, or past that version of herself. What she feels instead is interest. After the lesson, she asks to look at the book. Harry hands it over. She reads it for 2 hours that evening in the library and returns it without comment. But she opens her notebook to a fresh page, and she begins writing. The annotations, September. The Half-Blood Prince's modifications are brilliant in a specific and limited way. The person who made them was solving one problem: how to be better than everyone else in a room that had already decided his value. The modifications are defensive, competitive, occasionally vicious, the spellwork of someone who needed an edge and developed one from the inside out. What interests Hermione is not the result of each modification, but the grammar beneath it. She traces it across 3 weeks of annotation work. The prince adjusted the original text at the level of intent. Most potion-making instruction addresses the physical: stir clockwise, add at this temperature, wait this long. The prince's notes operate at the level beneath the physical. Why the stirring direction matters, what the heat does to the magical structure of the ingredient, what the waiting achieves in terms of the potion's intention receptivity. He understood that the instructions were a codified version of a deeper logic, and he worked from the deeper logic instead. It is the same principle she identified in the grimoire's older sections. She starts writing her own annotations in a separate notebook, not modifications of the potions. She has no interest in potions at this particular moment. What she is building, slowly and with the precision of someone who knows she only gets to discover this once, is an understanding of the magical grammar that connects spellwork to intent at a structural level. Specifically, what happens to that grammar when the intended target is not flesh but magical adhesion? Potter's Progression, October. Sectum Sempra, as the prince wrote it in the inside cover, is a severing curse. It works by identifying the boundary between a target and its surroundings, the magical seam where one thing ends and another begins, and separating them with surgical precision. In its original application, the boundary is physical, flesh. The spell finds the line and opens it, but the principle is not physical. The principle is separation. Hermione sits with this for 17 days. A soul piece, embedded in a host object, is held in place by magical adhesion, the same kind of boundary the prince's spell targets, but operating in a different dimension. Not the boundary between flesh and air, the boundary between a foreign soul fragment and the object it has colonized. The seam is there. It is a different kind of seam, but the grammar of finding it and separating it should in theory function on the same underlying principle. The modification requires 3 adjustments. The intent must be redirected from physical severance to magical adhesion severance. The directional component must be inverted, seeking inward along the seam rather than outward through the surface. And the dissolution rate must be slowed, because a soul piece released too quickly will simply anchor elsewhere rather than dissipate. She writes the incantation based on the prince's construction method. She cross-references it against the grimoire section on soul-adjacent magic. She adjusts twice. She arrives at something she calls in her notebook and nowhere else, Potter's progression. She writes to Sirius. Grimmauld Place. The test objects. November. He sends 5 objects over 3 weeks wrapped carefully, each one accompanied by a brief note describing the nature and age of its dark enchantment. A brass candlestick with a compulsion charm woven into the metalwork, old, mid-level, stubborn, a ring with a monitoring hex, a mirror with something malevolent in the reflection that he won't name specifically, a music box with a sleeping enchantment, a small wooden box that tries to bite whoever opens it. She starts with the candlestick. First attempt. Too fast. The separation happens, but the dark enchantment fragments rather than dissipating, and she has to spend 20 minutes neutralizing the pieces individually. She adjusts the dissolution rate. Second attempt with the ring. Cleaner, but the hex leaves a residue that the spell didn't fully clear. She adjusts the intent precision. Third attempt with the music box. A clean separation, the sleeping enchantment pulled out of the wood in a single thread, held for 1 second in the air, then gone. Nothing residual, nothing fragmented. She runs Potter's progression on the mirror. The malevolent thing in the reflection resists. Whatever it is, it has been in that glass for a long time and it does not want to leave. The spell finds the seam 3 times before it holds long enough to make the separation. Then, clean. The mirror reflects only the room. She writes in her notebook, confirmed effective against embedded dark magic constructs of varying age and complexity. Dissolution without fragmentation, no residue. Speed adjustable, ready. She sends Sirius the now clean mirror. He writes back, Mooney is going to want to know how you did that. I've been trying to get that thing out of the glass for 6 months. She does not tell him, not yet. She has something to do first. Gringotts. The filing, November. Dumbledore's hand is dying. He has been careful about keeping it hidden. The blackened fingers, the specific way he does not use his right hand for tasks he used to perform easily, but Hermione has been watching him since September, and she understands what the ring's curse is doing to him. He is running out of time, which means he is going to move his plan forward. She files the meeting request through Gringotts on a Tuesday afternoon. The filing is formal. Noble House of Potter representative requests an audience with the headmaster of Hogwarts regarding matters of house significance. Under the Hogwarts Founding Charter, the headmaster cannot decline a formal Noble House meeting request. The charter predates every subsequent amendment to Hogwarts governance by 4 centuries. Dumbledore accepts the meeting for Thursday. The headmaster's office, Thursday, November. The office is the same as it always is. The silver instruments, the portraits, Fawkes on his perch. Dumbledore sits behind his desk. His right hand rests in his lap out of sight. He looks tired in a way that is not about sleep. Harry and Hermione sit across from him. Harry is still. Hermione has the grimoire in her bag and her notebook, and the patience of someone who has been preparing for this specific conversation for 3 months. Dumbledore begins carefully. He talks about the war. He talks about Voldemort's Horcruxes, which he has been working through, he says, and has destroyed the ring at significant personal cost. He talks about the remaining ones. He talks about the soul piece in Harry's scar. He is circling something. Hermione can see the shape of it from the outside, the way a sentence is constructed that is working toward a particular destination by the most tolerable route. He is trying to find the version of Harry must die that lands with the least resistance. She does not let him reach it. Professor, she says, before you tell us what you think the conclusion is, I'd like to show you something." She takes the grimoire out of her bag. She opens it to page 203, the blood ritual section, which released in September, which she has read 47 times and can now recite from memory. She sets it on his desk and turns it so he can read it. She watches his face. He reads. He reads carefully and without speaking, the way he does everything, as though accuracy matters more than speed, which in his experience it always has. He reads the full page. Then he looks at the diagram on the facing page. Then he reads the notation at the bottom in Lily's handwriting, which Hermione has also read 47 times. He sets down the book. He looks at the grimoire. He looks at Hermione. He looks at Harry. His voice when it comes is very quiet. "How did you find the grimoire?" "It was in Vault 714, Hermione says, "which you apparently forgot was accessible to a female Potter heir." Silence. The portraits on the walls are awake and watching. Sirius Black, in his frame near the window, has the expression of someone who wants to speak and has decided, with unusual restraint, not to. Dumbledore looks at the grimoire again. He is processing something. Not the information, because she can see that he knows the information already. That this book is not new to him, but the fact of her having it. The fact that his calculation about what would and would not be accessible was wrong, and what that wrongness means for everything he has built around it. "Your mother," he says slowly, "was always the more thorough of the two." The sentence arrives in the room and stays there. He has said it without deciding to say it, she thinks. It came out of the place where his actual assessment of the situation lives, bypassing the managed version of himself that usually speaks. He is looking at her, at Hermione Lily Potter, the heir he never accounted for, sitting in his office with a grimoire that disproves the necessity of the sacrifice he has been working toward for 7 years. And what he sees is Lily. The same precision, the same refusal to accept a conclusion as fixed when the working behind it is incomplete. The blood ritual on page 203, Hermione says, requires 2 living heirs of the same sacrificial bloodline, both present, both willing. The soul piece in Harry's scar can be extracted through the ritual and destroyed without harming him. The grimoire documents 4 historical instances of a similar working. The theory is internally consistent, and I have tested a variant of the underlying principle on 5 separate dark magic constructs with complete success. She pauses. "We don't need a martyr, Professor. We need a ritual. And we have one." Dumbledore looks at her for a long time. For the first time in this story, in this office facing this man who has been 2 moves ahead of every other person in the wizarding world for 60 years, he has nothing to say. Not because he disagrees, because he is recalculating. Because the variable he discarded 12 years ago in a rubble-filled house in Godric's Hollow, in 15 minutes while Hagrid was on his way, is sitting across his desk holding the solution to the central problem of the war, and he is intelligent enough and honest enough in this moment to understand what that means. He discarded the answer. He chose the sacrifice because the answer was not supposed to exist. "The ritual will need preparation," he says finally. His voice is different now, thinner, more careful. Time, resources, conditions that must be exactly right. "I know," Hermione says. "I've started." Fox makes a sound from his perch. It is the sound a phoenix makes when something that has been wrong for a long time has just been corrected, which is a sound like rain beginning after a drought. Not dramatic, just the end of an absence. Dumbledore looks at Harry. Harry meets his eyes without expression. "Your mother," Dumbledore says again, but this time he is not talking to Hermione. He is talking to himself, or to Lily, or to the decision he made in the dark in 1981 and has been managing the consequences of ever since. She was always more thorough. He closes the grimoire. He slides it back across the desk. There is nothing else to say in this meeting. Hermione picks up the book, puts it in her bag, and stands. They leave him in his office with his blackened hand in his lap, and the particular silence of a man whose plan has been made obsolete by someone he forgot to account for. Lily Potter kept every letter. They were in the vault, at the back of a stone shelf behind the grimoire, bundled in groups by date, tied with ribbon that had faded from green to something closer to gray. Each bundle labeled in the same handwriting as the marginal notations Hermione has spent a year learning to read. The earliest letters dated from 1978, the latest from October 1981, 3 weeks before Godric's Hollow. Hermione and Harry go to the vault 3 weeks after the meeting with Dumbledore. They spend 4 hours reading. The letters from the Order are practical, logistics, safe house rotations, intelligence on Death Eater movements. The letters from Sirius are warm and chaotic, and occasionally very funny. The letters from Dumbledore are different. She identifies it in the third letter she reads, dated April 1980. Then she goes back to the first and the second, and finds it there too, less visible. But there. She reads 12 letters before she says anything. He wasn't advising, she says. Harry looks up from the bundle he's working through. The letters. She sets the one she's holding down on the table. He presents everything as options. You might consider moving to the Godric's Hollow property. The Blood Ward would function optimally if structured this way. The timing of the Secret Keeper switch, if you choose to make one, would be most effective if... She stops. He's not advising, he's arranging. Every suggestion he makes creates a condition that the next suggestion depends on. He's building something across 3 years of correspondence. Harry takes the letter she's set down. He reads it. He reads the one before it. He doesn't speak for a while. He needed them to be in Godric's Hollow, he says finally. On that specific night, with those specific protections in place. The sacrifice magic required it, Hermione says. The ancient protection that saved you, it doesn't just require a mother's love. It requires the right conditions. He built the conditions for my mother to die. The vault is quiet. The stasis box that held Lily's letter sits empty on the table between them. He built the conditions for you to survive it, Hermione says carefully. Those aren't the same thing, but they're not entirely separate either. Harry sets the letter down. He doesn't say anything for a long time. What was the plan after, he asks. After I survive, after Voldemort comes back, after the Horcruxes, what was it all building toward? Hermione has known the answer to this since February. She has been reading toward it for months without wanting to reach it. She reaches it now. You, she says, walking into the forest. The sole piece in your scar, his entire plan required you to understand it, accept it, and go. Not because it was the only way, because it was the way that required the least explanation. A boy alone, raised to sacrifice himself, without anyone who knew the alternative. She looks at the bundle of letters on the table. He didn't know about the grimoire. He didn't know about the blood ritual. He built a plan for a world where those things weren't accessible. She pauses. He built a plan for a world where I didn't exist. The grounds. The night before. She finds Harry on the steps outside the entrance hall at 11 at night, which is where he goes when he's processing something too large for the common room. She sits beside him. Neither of them speaks for a while. He's going to die tomorrow night, Harry says. He is not asking. He has been watching Dumbledore since November with the same attention Hermione uses on everything she's trying to understand, and he has arrived at the same place she arrived at 3 weeks ago. Yes, she says. He's choosing it. He's been choosing it for years. She looks out across the grounds, the lake, flat and black in the dark, the edge of the forest. The vanishing cabinet, Draco, Snape, he knows about all of it and he's not stopping it. It's part of the plan. His death is supposed to be the thing that makes the next phase possible, that makes the Order more desperate, that makes Voldemort more confident, that creates the conditions for the final confrontation. His plan, Harry says, not ours. Not ours, she agrees. A long pause. Does that mean we should stop it? He asks. She thinks about this with the full weight it deserves. She has been thinking about it for 3 weeks. He's made his choice. She says, he made it before we were born. We've changed the ending. The ritual changes the ending. Potter's progression changes it. The birth record and the prophecy and everything we've built changes it. But we can't change his choice. And I'm not certain we should. She is very still. He was wrong about you, about me, about the necessity of sacrifice. But he wasn't nothing. He's been carrying the weight of this war for decades. Harry nods. Once. We're not going to the tower, she says. No, we're staying here. Yes. They sit on the steps in the dark, and they wait. The Astronomy Tower, June 30th. 11:47 p.m. They see it from the grounds. A flash of green light from the tower, visible through the gap in the battlements, lasting less than 1 second. Then darkness. Then, a long time later, the sound of feet on stone, running from the castle's lower entrance. 2 sets of footsteps moving fast across the courtyard on the far side of the building. Snape, Draco, into the night. Harry's hand finds Hermione's. She doesn't look at him. They both look at the tower, which is now only a tower again. Stone and dark and completely ordinary, the way everything looks in the immediate aftermath of something that changes the shape of the world. The castle begins to make noise, shouts. Running inside, the controlled chaos of a building realizing something has happened. Harry and Hermione don't move from the steps. He chose a martyrdom, she says, for a world where only you existed. She looks at him now. We're not playing his game anymore. We haven't been for 2 years. But tonight is the last night anyone could confuse our story for his. Harry looks at the tower for a long time, then he raises his wand. The stag comes out fully formed, large antlered, the specific quality of silver-white light that belongs to a Patronus, that has been cast 1,000 times and knows its own shape completely. It moves out across the grounds without direction, the way it always does, like something born rather than summoned. Hermione raises her wand beside him. She has been practicing since September, casting the otter she has produced reliably since her 4th year. The silver form that is simply and specifically hers, the shape her magic defaults to when she reaches for it alone. She reaches for it now, as she always does. But the bond is open between them, the blood resonance active from the proximity and the weight of the night, and what comes from her wand is not the otter, it is something that combined casting calls up from deeper, from the part of her that is the grimoire's work, and Lily's blood and the identity that has been building since a vault opened to her touch and showed her who she was. A doe, fully present, slightly taller than Lily's doe was, by Sirius's old descriptions, standing straight, weight distributed, the posture of something that is exactly where it intends to be. She has known, since Sirius told her after the shack, that this form belongs to someone else in this world too, that Snape's Patronus is a doe, Lily's shape preserved in grief, a love that outlasted everything else. She files the coincidence alongside everything she doesn't yet have language for, that one doe carries loss, and one carries blood, and both run through the same woman's life differently. She will think about what it means, later, when there is space. Tonight, the form that her blood resonance casting has produced is hers. Not a copy, not an echo, something new that arrived from somewhere deep and real. The stag and the new doe face each other across the grass. They circle each other once, then they run together into the dark, side by side, becoming one source of light before the grounds take them. Harry lowers his wand. "Right," he says. His voice is rough but steady. "What's next?" "The Horcruxes," Hermione says. "We have a list. We have Potter's progression. We have the ritual mapped." She pauses. "And we have a letter to write." The Great Hall. Morning. Dumbledore's death has done to the school what his presence prevented for 30 years. It has made everyone understand, suddenly and completely, how afraid they actually are. The Order members who arrive through the night sit in the Great Hall with the particular stillness of people trying not to show what they're showing. Lupin has the expression he carries when he's controlling something enormous in a very small container. Tonks is pale. Moody is watchful in a way that means he doesn't know which direction the threat is coming from. McGonagall sits at the staff table and holds herself together with the specific discipline of someone who has been holding herself together since 1981 and knows how it's done. Harry and Hermione sit at the Gryffindor table. They are not separate from the grief in the room. Dumbledore was brilliant and committed and wrong in the deepest ways, and he is dead now, and both of those things are true simultaneously, and neither cancels the other. They grieve him, briefly, fully, and without simplifying what he was. Then Hermione opens her bag. The letter is written on House of Potter letterhead, the stag and doe crest at the top, the formal script that Gringotts' office produced when she had the stationery made in April. It is addressed to the Order of the Phoenix. She wrote it last week, refined it 4 times, and had Sirius read it by Patronus message on Tuesday. She walks to the staff table and places it in front of McGonagall. McGonagall looks at the crest, she looks at Hermione, she picks up the letter, she reads it twice. The letter does not request anything. It does not ask for direction or resources or permission. It informs the Order of the Phoenix, in careful and legally precise language, that the ancient and noble House of Potter is proceeding with the war against Tom Marvolo Riddle on its own timeline and through its own methodology. The Horcrux hunt is underway. The means of defeating Voldemort have been identified and are being enacted. The Order is welcome to act in parallel. Their work at the Ministry, their protection of civilians, their intelligence network, all of it remains valuable and all of it is acknowledged as such. The House of Potter will coordinate where coordination is useful. The House of Potter will not be waiting for instructions. McGonagall sets the letter down. She looks at Hermione for a long moment, at this 16-year-old girl in school robes standing at the staff table the morning after the headmaster's death, with the particular composure of someone who has been preparing for this specific moment for a very long time. "Your mother," she says, "wrote just like this." A pause. "I used to tell her she was terrifying. Hermione says, "She taught me." McGonagall holds her gaze for 1 second, then she nods. Once, precise. The nod of someone who has just decided something and is not going to revisit the decision. She refolds the letter. She places it in her robes. Across the great hall, Harry is watching. Hermione walks back to the table and sits down. She picks up her tea. Outside, the June morning is doing what June mornings do. Bright, indifferent, continuing. Albus Dumbledore built a plan for a world where only Harry existed, and Harry's death was the price of victory. He is gone now. The plan that replaced his is already in motion. 5 Horcruxes fall before Voldemort moves on Hogwarts. The locket goes first in September, in a derelict Black family property in Yorkshire that Sirius produces from memory and the Gringotts property ledger. Hermione applies Potter's progression in a controlled setting, the locket on a stone table, Sirius watching from the doorway with his wand drawn in case the soul piece fights back through the object. It does. The soul piece claws at the boundaries of its vessel for 40 seconds before the spell finds the seam and holds it. Then the separation. Clean, total, the dark magic thread pulled out of the gold in one piece and exposed to dissolution. The locket becomes jewelry. Nothing more. The cup falls in November. The Gringotts heist is quieter than it would have been. They go through formal channels. The House of Potter's banking relationship with Goldtooth converting what would have been a break-in into a coordinated extraction. Goldtooth is not enthusiastic about the presence of a Horcrux in his vaults, and he makes this clear in writing 3 times before agreeing to assist. The cup comes out of the Lestrange vault in a containment sphere. Potter's progression dissolves the soul piece in the lineage room, where Goldtooth watches with an expression that communicates without words that he hopes never to see anything like this again. The diary was destroyed years ago, a fact Hermione notes in her log is already handled. The diadem falls in February, in the Room of Requirement. This one requires Fiendfire, because the diadem has been in the room long enough that the soul piece is fused with the enchantments of the object at a level Potter's progression cannot cleanly separate. Hermione casts the Fiendfire herself, controlled, directional, targeted rather than flooding. She has practiced this working for 6 weeks and she does not let it run. The diadem is gone in 30 seconds. The fire goes out. The ring was destroyed by Dumbledore. She counts it. That leaves 2. Nagini, alive and close to Voldemort, inaccessible until he moves. And the soul piece in Harry's scar, which they have been saving for last, because the ritual for removing it requires conditions they have been building toward since the grimoire's pages opened for them one by one, slowly, as though the book itself was deciding what they were ready to know. By April, they are ready. Godric's Hollow, the ritual, April. The ruins are exactly as they have always been, preserved by memorial enchantment, the collapsed wall, the upper floor open to the sky. The village keeps the house as it fell because no one has decided what else to do with it, which means the origin point of James and Lily Potter's sacrifice has been sitting here, untouched, for 16 years. They swept the village at dusk, diagnostic spells from the grimoire, the dark magic sensor array Hermione built in November, triangulated against every point of the grounds. No surveillance enchantments, no presence of human or animal reporting back. Voldemort had redirected his attention to Hogwarts by March. Whatever watch he once kept on Godric's Hollow had been withdrawn when the location produced nothing useful for 6 months. The village is quiet. The ruins hold only memory. The night is cold and clear. Hermione has drawn the ritual circle in the remains of the ground floor, using the Potter runic chalk from the grimoire supply kit, chalk that responds to the blood of the person drawing it, activating as she works. The circle is 12 feet across. The notation around its edge is in the Old Language, not English and not Latin, the one the grimoire's earliest sections are written in that she spent 2 months learning to pronounce with the precision the magic requires. Harry stands at the center. She has explained it to him once, completely, and he has not asked her to explain it again. This is the thing about Harry that she has understood since they were 11. When he trusts entirely. There is no version of him that trusts halfway. You hold still, she says. Whatever the soul piece shows you, whatever it tries to make you feel, you hold still and you want it gone. That's all. I'll do the rest. I know, he says. She steps to the circle's edge. She raises her wand. She speaks the incantation. The Old Language in the open air of Godric's Hollow sounds like something being completed, a sentence that was started on this ground in October 1981 and has been waiting since then for its second half. The runic notation on the circle's edge, glows not brightly, not with the theatrical light of a spell that wants to be noticed, but with the steady quality of something old and accurate, recognizing the conditions it was designed for. The ritual is the completion of Lily's sacrifice. That is the only way Hermione has ever understood it, and the only frame that makes it work. Lily gave everything. The ritual gives back. It takes the original act of love, the magic that saved Harry and hid Hermione and has been running through both of them since they were infants, and it completes the circuit. 2 heirs, both present, both choosing. The magic that Voldemort shattered against in 1981 returned through its own children with twice the blood and twice the intent. The soul piece fights. Harry stands still. His face goes through things. She can see them from the circle's edge, the visions the soul piece is generating, the things it's showing him to make him flinch. She doesn't know what they are. He doesn't flinch. He wants it gone. The seam opens. Not like a wound, like a lock releasing, the specific mechanical precision of something that was never supposed to be there and has finally been correctly identified and addressed. The soul piece comes free in a single motion, drawn out through the same pathway it forced its way in through 16 years ago, but this time from the outside, with instruments designed for the work. It is ugly in the open air, small and dark and frantic and silent, screaming in a register that has no sound, clawing for purchase on anything available and finding nothing, because the ritual's circle is exactly what it is, a space where Voldemort's magic has nowhere to be. It lasts 4 seconds, then it dissolves. Gone. Less than nothing. Harry's legs give. She is already moving. She catches him at the circle's edge, both of them down on one knee in the ruins of his parents' house, her arm across his back, and he breathes long, ragged, the breath of someone surfacing. Is it gone? He asks. She presses 2 fingers to his scar, the cold knock she has learned to feel across 6 years of practice, the specific resonance of a soul piece's presence. Nothing. Silence. Just Harry. It's gone, she says. He straightens slowly. He looks at the circle. He looks at the collapsed wall, the open sky above where the upper floor used to be, the place where his parents died and where 2 things have just been completed. One family's destruction and one family's restoration. All right, he says. He stands up. Let's finish it. Hogwarts, May 2nd, before dawn. Voldemort comes to Hogwarts because he has been watching the Horcruxes disappear one by one, and he knows what it means, and he is afraid for the first time in 50 years, and fear in Voldemort produces the same thing it produces in most dangerous people: attack. He brings every Death Eater, he brings giants, he brings Dementors along the perimeter, he brings Nagini coiled at his side, the last of his soul anchors, the thing he believes still makes him unkillable. The castle is not empty. The Order has been in position since midnight. McGonagall has been preparing the castle's defenses for 3 weeks, methodically, with the thoroughness of a woman who has been waiting for this moment since 1981 and was not going to arrive at it underprepared. The battle fills the corridors. It is loud and dark and terrible and real, with the particular cost of all real things. People fall, the castle takes damage, the night is not clean. Nagini dies in the Great Hall. Neville Longbottom, who Harry trained in the DA 3 years ago, and who has been leading the resistance within Hogwarts for the better part of a year, finds himself forced to his knees before Voldemort in the center of the hall. The sorting hat drops onto his head. Voldemort's deliberate mockery, setting the hat alight to announce that Hogwarts is finished, and the old traditions with it. What Voldemort does not know and cannot know is that the Sword of Gryffindor answers a different logic entirely. It appears in Neville's hand from within the burning hat, pulled to a worthy Gryffindor who needs it, in the same way it appeared for Harry in the chamber years ago. Neville decapitates Nagini with one motion. He does it the way he does everything now, without announcement, without theater, with the quiet competence of someone who has been forged by necessity into something much harder than he started as. Nagini's body hits the stone floor, the last Horcrux is gone, the Great Hall, the final confrontation. Voldemort feels it. He knows the moment it happens, knows the way you know when the last anchor releases, when something you have been relying on to hold you to the world is no longer there. He stands in the Great Hall with Death Eaters at his back, and the full force of 50 years of dark arts mastery behind him. And he is afraid, and afraid is something he has never been before, and it makes him want this finished. He expects Harry Potter alone. 17 years old, traumatized by war and loss, and the specific damage of being the singular target of the most powerful dark wizard alive. He gets two people, standing side by side in the center of the Great Hall, neither of them alone. He looks at Hermione first, because she is standing slightly forward, and because there is something about her that his instruments of detection have never been able to categorize correctly, and because the magic coming off the two of them together is not the magic he has been tracking for 17 years. He doesn't recognize it, he has never encountered it, he has 70 years of dark arts mastery, and he is looking at something he cannot place. Harry Potter, he says. His voice is what it has always been. Cold, precise, the voice of someone who has spent decades treating other people as problems to be solved. He does not look at Hermione again. This is his mistake, and it is the same mistake as Dumbledore's, and it is the mistake that ends him. He has spent the entirety of this war accounting for one Potter child. Tom, Harry says. The name lands in the hall like a stone into still water. Voldemort's face does something involuntary. You've been working from the wrong number, Harry says. You've been working from one, there were always two of us. Voldemort raises the Elder Wand. Harry raises his. Avada Kedavra. Expelliarmus. The green light and the red light meet in the center of the Great Hall. The Elder Wand, which passed from Dumbledore's hand to Draco Malfoy's to Harry's through the logic of mastery that the wand itself enforces, recognizes its master. Not Voldemort, who stole it from a tomb. Harry, who disarmed the man who had disarmed the man who held it last. The wand turns. The killing curse has nowhere to go. Every Horcrux is gone. Every fragment of Voldemort's soul has been extracted and dissolved and rendered into nothing. There is no anchor remaining. The man who spent 50 years refusing to die has run out of the structures that made refusal possible. The curse comes back. Tom Marvolo Riddle does not die dramatically. He does not make a speech. He does not have a last expression of fury or recognition or anything the stories will later claim. He comes apart the way a thing comes apart when everything holding it together has been systematically removed, and then he is not in the room anymore. Not defeated, not merely dead, erased. The Elder Wand falls to the stone floor. Harry picks it up. His own wand, undamaged throughout the hunt, never broken, the holly and phoenix feather wand that has served him since he was 11, is in his other hand. The Elder Wand is not needed to repair what was never damaged. It is not needed for anything now. He looks at it for one moment, then breaks it cleanly over his knee and drops the pieces. The Death Eaters in the hall see what has just happened. They see a man they believed was unkillable. Gone. Several run. Several drop their wands. One begins to cry, which is a sound that does not fit the architecture of the moment, but is there nonetheless. The Great Hall is quiet. Hermione stands in the center of it, exactly where she was standing when the fight began, and looks at Harry, and Harry looks at her. And between them there is the specific silence of two people who have just done a thing they have been building toward for 6 years, and are still, for this one moment, inside it. Outside, the sun is beginning. The Weasley. 3 weeks later, the chamber is full, every seat occupied. The interim minister, Kingsley Shacklebolt, appointed in the immediate aftermath, sits at the presiding bench and looks, for the first time in months, like a man who is managing a world that is moving in the right direction. He calls on the Potter heirs to address the chamber. Harry stands. He looks at Hermione. He steps aside. Hermione Lily Potter walks to the front of the Wizengamot chamber. She is 18 years old. She does not have notes. This war happened, she says, because one man decided that the suffering of a child was an acceptable price for a particular outcome. Her voice carries without effort. It is the voice she has been developing for 6 years, in practice chambers and courtrooms and Gringotts offices and a headmaster's study, the voice of someone who understands that being heard correctly is a skill and has treated it as one. That man was not Voldemort. Voldemort was a monster, and monsters are simple. The man I am speaking of was more dangerous than a monster. He was a good man who made a terrible calculation. He looked at 2 children and decided that one of them was a variable he could control through isolation, and one of them he could afford to disappear. He was wrong on both counts. We are not here because of his plan. We are here despite it. The chamber is very quiet. The House of Potter is restored. No one will decide what we owe them. No one will arrange our suffering for the greater good. And if anyone, minister, headmaster, Dark Lord, or otherwise, attempts to make that calculation for any child in this world again, they will answer to us. The Weasley does not applaud. The silence is too full for applause. Several members, the older ones, the ones who remember Euphemia Potter in Fleamont, who taught Lily Evans in Transfiguration, and watched James Potter play Quidditch and thought they knew what the House of Potter looked like, are simply looking at the young woman at the front of the chamber with expressions that have no single name. In the public gallery, Sirius Black is not looking at anyone. He is looking at his hands, which are shaking slightly, and his face is doing something he would not choose to have witnessed, but cannot stop. The session continues. There are votes and motions, and the administrative machinery of a world trying to put itself back together. The House of Potter participates in all of it, carefully, methodically, with the patient precision of two people who have been learning how this works since they were 12 years old. They will continue to participate for a long time. Gringotts, the vault. That afternoon, Goldtooth is waiting for them. He does not explain why he is waiting or how he knew they would come today. He is Goldtooth, which means he knows what he needs to know and does not narrate it. He leads them without being asked down to the lineage room, where the crystal sits on its table in the lamplight. He opens the formal ledger. He produces the update document, prepared in advance because Goldtooth does not do things halfway, and he reads it to them not because they need to hear it, but because this is the correct procedure and he believes in correct procedure. The entry now reads, James Charles Potter, Lily Euphemia Potter, née Evans, Hermione Lily Potter, senior heir, Harry James Potter, junior heir. He activates the crystal. 3 drops from Hermione, 3 drops from Harry. The crystal reads them both simultaneously, something it has never been asked to do before, something Goldtooth has adjusted the apparatus to accommodate because the old instruments were not built for 2 living heirs of the same line presenting together. The blood scroll produces itself. Both names, both lines, unredacted, unscrambled, unmistakably present. The blood on the scroll illuminates them equally. The gold of old magic recognizing what it was always supposed to record if someone had not pressed a seal over it in a room beneath the ministry in October 1981 and left it there to be forgotten. 4 names, side by side, burning quietly in the lamplight of the vault. Harry looks at them for a long time. Do you think they can see this? He asks. Hermione looks at the names, her mother's name and her father's name and her own and Harry's, all of them belonging to each other the way they always did, the way they were always going to, the way nothing that was done to separate them was ever going to prevent permanently, because permanence belongs to blood and blood does not take instruction. I think they already knew, she says. Goldtooth files the scroll. He closes the ledger with the careful finality of a man sealing something that will not need to be reopened. She closes the vault door, the iron settles into place, the mechanism locks. They walk back through the marble corridors and up through the bank and out through the bronze doors and down the white steps into the afternoon light of Diagon Alley. Ordinary, busy, a Tuesday in May with people going about their lives in a world where the war is over and the sky is unremarkable, and the House of Potter has been formally, permanently, correctly recorded. The story of Hermione and Harry Potter is not finished. It is just beginning. Let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.